From the people who brought you White Derp and White Derp 2, The Crazy Adventures of Pooflong Doo and Krog Wars, comes no more shitty games because they ain't on Steam no more.
Digital Homicide is back at it again in the limelight for another shitty thing that they're doing. Apparently, they're trying to sue 100 Steam users over bad reviews.
So if you're not familiar with what's been happening with Digital Homicide, earlier this year they brought a lawsuit on Jim Sterling for reviewing one of their shitty games, Slaughtering Grounds. And that's just one of tons and tons of shitty games that they pop out. So if you want to check out the link in the description, Jim Sterling goes through everything that went down with that.
So on top of the now $15 million attempted lawsuit on Jim Sterling, they're going after another $18 million from these 100 Steam users. Say for whatever reason this does end up passing, by some miracle of God or the devil or whatever. How are they going to collect $18 million from some average 100 users on Steam?
Well, that hypothetical is never going to happen. I'll tell you that right now. Because you think in the history of games, people haven't been criticized and then they talk shit about their games? What do? They just suck it up, and hopefully you would think they would go and try to develop a good game. Okay? But these guys have the complete opposite business model. Instead of taking the reviews and the criticisms that people give them, they completely shut it out, cry like babies, and keep pumping out shitty games.
We know that the internet is a very, very shitty place. People are very toxic on everything from YouTube comments to Reddit to Tumblr. Anything where people get together is bound to be toxic. So shouldn't they be aware of this? Although it might not be right, and death threats against people and their families, there's no point to it. But it's the nature of business on the internet. If you're a part of it, you have to deal with the situation as is, not the situation you want in the future.
Well, exactly. I mean, what do you expect? These people are anonymous. All you have are their usernames. They're gonna say whatever they want. You can't take these things to heart. If someone calls you an asshole or says your game is shitty, or they even give you a death threat, I mean, you can't take that to heart. Instead, these guys think that they deserve all this money if they actually were pumping out a even decent product that was worth even playing, then maybe I'd feel some sympathy for them, and maybe they'd have something that they could bring up and get money for. But no, these games are not good at all. Just look at any of the trailers they have on their website. You'll see that they're just terrible, fucking terrible. And that's just what they want to show you too. So I would check out any review of those games and you'll just see how bad they are.
I don't even want to call them developers or producers. The things that they output are shit.
Just two dudes.
Yes, just two dudes. The only thing that's consistent is their egos. They're so fragile that any small thing, whether it be random anonymous users on the internet, critics on YouTube, whatever it may be, sends them into this spiraling, self-grave digging self-destruction that we're seeing playing out right now, and it just boggles the mind.
Okay, so let's flip this on the other side. We read a few things in the articles that happened to the brothers saying, okay, someone sent like doo-doo to them. they sent shit to them. They called Jehovah's Witnesses to come to their house.
Yeah.
People are giving death threats.
We see this especially in the video game industry. Happens all the freaking time. The most recent thing that comes to memory is the thing about No Man's Sky. When it was announced that it was going to be delayed earlier in the year, people sent death threats to reporters that reported that there was going to be a delay, let alone the developer
Yeah.
So this is something that is just expected in the environment. It's nothing that should stay in any capacity, but it's something that you have to deal with if you're going to be in this industry.
Instead of focusing all their energy on trying to get money, put these lawsuits together, and just fight an uphill battle, I think they should just focus, own up to what they do. They know they make shitty games. And, just focus on one game, one solid game that they could put a little bit of effort to. I mean, you see other examples. Some games don't look good. They have glitches. Things like Goat Simulator, which they played off on the whole glitch thing, and it made it funny. Blood and Bacon, the graphics they're absolute shit, but it's a fun game. They have all these assets that they can use. Just focus it into one game and maybe make something funny.
And there's one key thing about all those games that I have not seen in a single one of Digital Homicide's games. They get supported after they get released. I don't think I've seen one single Digital Homicide game get a patch or even remotely have an afterthought about it after it's been published.
There is no afterthought. The afterthought is, all right, next game. Let's go.
Yeah.
Next game.
I mean, some of these games are getting sequels, a record week after it's released?
You had Wyatt Derp, and then a week later, maybe not even a week, you have Wyatt Derp 2.
I think that's a record in the amount of time a sequel has come out.
Yeah, and then you have the clones. They have the Space Invader clones. Just a million different ones.
Which, for some reason, are shittier than the original Space Invader.
How's that even possible? I mean, the best one is I don't even know what it's called, but you're an asshole, a literal asshole shooting dookie at different enemies. Now that one, I think that one is pretty funny, but you can't keep making the same game over and over again.
And the thing on top of that is that game that you just mentioned. Those assets were used in another game that had the theme of you playing an asshole, but you were rotating around and doing some shit. I don't know what it was doing. I think you were collecting food and shitting in a toilet. I can't tell you what goes through these guys' minds.
I mean, the concept is great. That could be a very good game. I could see that making lots of money if you put effort into it. I'm absolutely kidding. If you look back on Digital Homicide's ordeal with Jim Sterling surrounding that, you'll see that the GoFundMe that they started had absolutely no support. They wanted to raise $75,000 for the legal fees. And you know how much money they got as of right now?
6 months after.
6 months after. $425. $425.
And that was only accumulated in the first 3 months. So they had 3 months of nothing.
If you look at the people who actually donated to the GoFundMe, you'll see that they're all anonymous. Digital Homicide wanted to keep these users anonymous, but what I'm thinking is they're just funding their own thing. They're trying to just feed money in to hopefully get people to send money towards them, and no one's biting. No one is biting at all.
I mean, there's no real proof of that, but because of their previous shady actions, this isn't out of the realm of possibility. If it wasn't bad enough that they're suing 100 users, that they're suing Jim Sterling, it looks like they're even planning on looking for ways to sue Valve for kicking them off their platform.
Steam is better off without these shitty titles in their library, but if they're going to continue with this and get themselves buried in the ground, good luck to them, because that's gonna just end in tragedy.
There's no way they can take on Valve. I mean, 2 people going after a company worth what, like $3 billion?
I have no idea. But it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know what they're smoking, but they need to fucking drop that shit right now.
I didn't even hear about Digital Homicide until I heard about all this shit that was going down with them. All the things about suing, lawsuits, money, million stars. What I think is they're doing this for press. Because did you know about them before this whole thing was going down?
I mean, I only heard about them with the Jim Sterling thing that happened earlier in the year. I mean, I think that's where most people heard about this company. But wouldn't you think they would have played off of that during the Jim Sterling like lull period after that whole thing happened, but there was nothing. Like there was no improvement in their product. There was still the normal shitware coming out, but there was like they didn't really use that press to any advantage for themselves.
They just dug a bigger hole, is what they did.
Yeah.
They raised awareness to the shit
They can't
produce.
they can't climb out of the hole they made, so they're just hoping if they dig down enough, they'll pop through the other side.
But people are not gonna forget about this.
So, I mean, do you think that they can come back in any feasible way? From the shit they've done right now, from the point they're at right now, do you think they can make a U-turn and try to like save this?
Is that a serious question?
That's like, yeah.
I think at one point they could have maybe reversed this whole thing, maybe a little bit before they decided to sue Jim Sterling. But now that their games are off of Steam, that everyone almost universally hates their games, and they're getting all this negative coverage, there is no way in freaking hell that they're going to be able to turn this around.
That's it for this episode of Salt Report. Hopefully you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and never play a digital homicide game unless you hate yourself.